one of the games I made, like it was called Owl Hunter. So you had to get kind of this owl into a cage, and then you'd have to use kind of physics rules and everything to get that owl kind of gliding towards the right path and everything. So
This episode of the BloomX podcast is brought to you by NetWin Place. NetWin Place is a co-working office space based in Scarborough. Co-working is quickly taking the working world by storm. Entrepreneurs of all sorts can take advantage of the many benefits offered by co-working spaces. NetWin Place is focused on small businesses, entrepreneurs, professionals, and anyone else in between. Their 10,000 square foot shared office space is ready to help anyone make their business dream a reality. Good to go? Awesome. All right, Nima, thank you for joining us on the BloomX podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Perfect. How are you feeling today?
Good.
Yeah. We met at the pitch competition, the Shanghai pitch competition.
Yes.
At the Markham Civic Center, right? And you were one of the participants for that.
Yeah.
And that's when I first heard about ShiftRide.
Yes.
So real quick, can you give me a cliff note? What is ShiftRide? And we have this in the background for no reason. Go ahead.
Okay. We can continue? Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, cool. So basically ShiftRide gives people on-demand access to cars that are owned by other people in the community. So sort of like a marketplace for cars or like Airbnb for cars. And we provide flexible trips. So if someone wants to go out for their errand, run around town, or whether they want to go visit family outside of town, they can do that all with ShiftRide. And we provide them with insurance. They book through the app, and there's no kind of wait. It's just on demand.
Sorry, so this is like an Airbnb, but for cars.
Essentially, yeah.
You rent out your cars.
Yeah,
your vehicle.
Yeah.
What kind of vehicles can you rent out?
Well, we have a variety of cars, so they're all priced differently. The car owner sets the price. So if you want to go on a nice date and you want a nice car, you can book like let's say Mercedes for like $15 an hour, or if you want to go out and just get some groceries, you can rent out a more affordable car at like maybe $7 an hour.
Okay.
So it varies, yeah.
So how do you price the rental of a car?
Well, right now we have like two kind of pricing. One is based on demand. So as demand kind of goes up and down, we price it based on that to allow for more bookings to happen for the car, or we can just let the car owner decide and set their own kind of price that they're comfortable renting out their car at.
Okay. So the user or the person renting the car, they set the price they want.
Yes, exactly. They have that flexibility.
And the market kind of adjusts based on if people are buying it or not.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that's another option. So you can either go with your own pricing or let us kind of based on the demand adjust the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you guys who build that model, I'm assuming there's some kind of intelligence there to figure out what's the best way to price it.
Yeah.
How did you base it off of? Did you ask people what the average cost was? Like, what was the validation?
Yeah, originally kind of when we started, and we had kind of a pilot in July 2017, we kind of priced it at around maybe, I think at that time it was like as low as like $6 an hour or something like that for a car that was like pretty decent, like a mid-range car. And then from there, based on demand, we just kind of adjusted it. So as we saw that car like be out for like, let's say, most of the day, like at least 12 hours or so, then we would kind of bump it up to get it to a level where it was decent. So it wouldn't be sitting all the time, but at the same time, it's like the price would make sense as a car owner to have that car. We at that time maybe the car was generating, let's say, $200 a month, but our aim was to get it to like $500 a month, which is kind of what we see now as the average kind of earning on ShiftRide as a car owner.
Do you see that is your app live yet?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah,
so
we officially launched in November 2017.
Awesome.
So we're just on iPhone right now, still working on that Android app, but kind of launched one side of the platform to get it kind of tested first before we invest more into another app, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you launched in 2017.
Yes.
So about 2 years now in the marketplace. How many people use the app?
Yeah. So we have about 1,700 people signed up in total, and about 40 cars listed in total. But about maybe I would say like half of those are customers who actually use the platform and paid for it. And we've had about 4,000 trips so far.
It's amazing.
And this is all coming from Waterloo. So these are cars that are maybe within let's say like a 4-kilometer radius or so of just in Waterloo, which is where kind of we did the pilot, we tested it, and now we're ready to start kind of expanding to other cities as well.
That's awesome. So you launched this app in 2017. How did you get your initial users?
Yeah, great question. So we launched it in kind of end of 2017, but like in the summer of 2017, we did a pilot where we actually just opened up a Facebook Messenger bot that we kind of put together in one day using like one of the online apps that you can use. I think it was called like Chat Fuel or something. You could just build the chat bot and like right away with just like drag and drop without knowing any code at all. So we built that, and then it would just ask people for the basic information. So the driver's license, phone number,
this will
email.
message them on Facebook?
Yeah, so basically people would just go on Facebook. Like you don't even need to go to another app, right? So we made it super simple, and we just shared it with our friends on Facebook, right? So
so before you had a platform at all,
yeah,
you kind of hacked together
this was our kind of like
chatbot.
MVP, right? Like the minimum viable product that you hear a lot of people talk about in the startup world. Like that was our MVP to be honest, like I was kind of against the idea when my co-founder came up with it, and I was like, I'm a perfectionist. I want everything kind of
it's one of the biggest
details.
of entrepreneurship, trying to launch a product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you get stuck in that cycle. But then, kind of, I thought about it. I'm like, it might not be a bad idea, So we launched it. We just shared it with our friends at first, so just on Facebook. And actually, our very first booking was just one of our friends who actually owned a car himself, but just wanted to be the first one to use the platform. And I think he just took the car to go like mail something and come back for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that booking was like $4 or $5 or something in booking. But yeah, it was
so
that's kind of how
in this
it started.
2 years, what do you found? Like, do people want this like for temporary use, like within a half an hour to a few hours time slots, or do they rent cars for days or weeks?
Yeah, I mean we have like both sides. Like we have those longer trips are not as common or not as kind of frequent. People still take them. Like if they need to
So
go.
what would be the
to
average
Toronto.
fee?
The average is about 2.5 hours right now.
2.5 hours?
Yeah.
People just like, okay, I need 2 hours for this car.
Yeah, pretty much, and they travel mostly within the city, and that's really how we advertise it as well. Is like kind of Airbnb for cars for your short trips within the city. And now we're getting a little bit more flexible with the pricing, and with things like that to allow them to kind of keep the car for a day or two if they want to.
Yeah. And how's the income been for people who put the cars up?
So when we started, it was around like maybe $200 a month, which was not that great, but we slowly pushed it more and more up towards like $500 a month on average right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what a car owner can expect when they list their car with ShiftRide, and that's based on kind of them sharing the car for at least majority of the time. So especially on weekends where people like want to take the car for longer.
I mean, this is a great model, but how'd you convince the first few people to put their cars up?
Yeah. So actually, the when we launched in July, it was just like one car that we had ourselves, like our own car. We just put it up, and it was just one car for about like maybe 2-3 months up until when my co-founder went in and convinced actually a used car dealership in Waterloo to list some cars with us. They started with 3. They were finally convinced. It took a few like meetings where we met with them, and they were like, no, it doesn't work out. We're not interested. And eventually we got them to actually test out 3 cars and just see if it works. Especially during that time, we were still waiting for the insurance policy that we were working on in order to be able to allow individuals to sign up. So up until that point, we could only sign up kind of fleet cars or cars that are owned by like a company with pretty expensive insurance on them. So at that time,
Sorry, this is right in the beginning? You can only rent out fleet cars.
Exactly, yeah. Like cars owned by like essentially cars that have like $500 a month insurance on them, right? So like pretty expensive, like kind of commercial insurance.
So that's what you did. So the first fleet that the first few vehicles that are on the platform were fleet cars?
Yeah, essentially.
So you would go to like rental companies and ask them to use
a used car dealership, actually. So it was a used car dealership. They had maybe about like 30 cars in their fleet, and they were interested in this model. They wanted to kind of expand and test out different things that they can do with the cars other than just selling them. So we convinced them to
used car rental like a dealership.
Yeah.
Right. So a used car dealership, you'd go to them and tell them you have all these cars just sitting on your lot.
Sitting there, yeah.
Just put them on here. You can monetize them while they're sitting there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was there any concerns about extra mileage being put on them, wear and tear?
Well,
People making a
yeah.
mess.
Initially, like all of that were like was kind of like on top of their mind. But as they kind of tested it for a month with only like 3 cars, they were slowly convinced that the income eventually
So I want to
would
know how
be
that
good.
process works. 'Cause
Hmm.
I would imagine if you don't know anybody in that industry, it
Yeah.
could be a little bit of a negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you found these car companies. Like, what was the process like? You went and just
Yeah.
called them up and you asked them these kind of questions. Like,
Yeah, pretty much. Like sometimes even just like we walked in and then we told them what we had, and a lot of them weren't interested. They were just like interested in kind of keep not playing around with the different
yeah,
kind of
they
business
wanted
models,
you
especially
more
risky
safe.
ones.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted that safety and peace of mind. But for us, what we did is that we told them about the insurance that we could put on their cars, and actually to minimize like any risk or any kind of friction on their end.
Sorry, you're providing extra insurance.
Yeah, like like we'd cover the insurance for them. Like they
Okay.
wouldn't have to pay anything out of pocket, and so that was kind of one of the kind of friction points, right?
Yeah.
Was who's going to pay for that insurance and registration and all these costs that come with even testing the platform.
So
Like
you
ours,
used
yeah.
it for them to use the platform.
Pretty much, yeah. We took those costs over, and then we even at like during some certain times where there were like kind of low bookings for the car, we'd guarantee them an extra kind of bonus in order to keep them satisfied on the platform. And then we would go out and try to really get people to book these cars like over and over, and then eventually they would get to a point where we wouldn't need to do any like bonus earnings or anything like that. They'd be making their booking earnings through the app.
Right.
And
So talking about friction points, I mean,
yeah.
what was that point? Like, was it one dealer that you finally convinced over a period of time to come on, or was it a series of dealers who just?
Yeah, so at that
Understood.
point, because we still weren't launch yet, so we were just like we had a pilot out, and we were like,
Is this
well,
still
it's
for your
working.
MVP for your chatbot app?
Yeah, exactly. So we still had the chatbot at the time. I think this was like in October 2017. So like maybe 2-3 months after we had that chatbot out, we were like we should go out and get more cars, because the one car that we had was getting booked over and over, and so we were like we had customers waiting on that car, right? So we're like, okay, it's time to go out and get more cars, right? So that's a question that we always get asked, like how do you kind of balance the supply and demand? And it was really based on kind of one demand that we had for one car, and then once kind of the demand was too high for that one car, we went out and got supply. So we convinced one dealership to kind of partner up with us at that time, and again they supplied us with like 3 cars.
What vehicle did you start with? Because it seems like you had a vehicle that you used the platform first before you went to anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Like what specific vehicle it was?
No, you had your own vehicle you put up online?
Yeah, pretty much. It was our own car. Yeah, it was like.
And it was just one car that you had up running?
Exactly, it was just one
Rent
car,
this
like
ride?
24/7. Even when we wanted to use it, like we'd go through the app to really get the experience of the user and everything, and see like on their end what it would look like, how much it would cost, and all of those.
Okay. So you validated from your own vehicle. You went
Exactly.
on to get other people to put on the system.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Cool.
And then with the 3 cars that dealership committed to
So you
the
said
platform.
23 cars?
3 cars.
3 cars.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they added those 3 cars, and then now we had 4 cars, right?
Yeah.
So we went out, got more bookings for them, and eventually we're doing, on average about like 1 booking every 2 days, and then eventually 1 booking every day, kind of for every car. So we were at that point where again we needed more cars, and then eventually we had that insurance policy that we could add individually owned cars, and they wouldn't have to put commercial insurance on it. So it became a lot more scalable at that point. We signed up more individuals. We signed up more luxury cars, a lot of nice BMWs, Audis, a lot of luxury cars got added to the platform. At the same time, a lot of like other cars. And to your question, like on like how we convinced those people, like because they saw how kind of the platform worked with those dealership cars, and we got to the point where the earnings were decent enough. That really convinced the car owners, like the individual car owners, to be convinced and want to sign up.
How many cars do you have on your platform now?
So right now we're again about like 40 listed,
40.
but about on a monthly basis, maybe about half of them are actually being shared on the platform. So they at least add like a
So you
schedule
can take
for a
them
day
off,
or
you can
so.
take off the platform and then re-add them.
Yeah, like either they're always on the platform, but if they go out a schedule, then they become kind of a monthly active car owner. Let's say that's kind of a metric that we have that we keep track
And most of these are still like fleet vehicles?
Now we do have one like individual owner who is actually owns multiple cars as well, so similar model. It's kind of like when you look at Airbnb, where you have like people who actually do this for a living and get
professionals versus
yeah, exactly, they actually use Airbnb as a business. They get like multiple places and rent them out, and then you have individuals who just have their own kind of one place. So yeah, we do have kind of the same model. Like we have one individual doing this where they have like 4 cars 24/7 shared,
yeah.
and then we have individuals who are also kind of filling the gap.
So what's the profile look like of somebody who wants to rent out their vehicle? Because I feel like there's
Yeah.
a specific kind of need for that.
Yeah, exactly. So it comes down to kind of multiple things. One is like the need for the income. Like if they can use an extra $400 or $500 a month, while their car is sitting parked and they're not using it all the time, then that's a perfect fit. That's what we're looking for.
Is that what
as
generally
our-
you see? People just looking for external income?
Yeah, essentially,
Yeah, I can see
like
that.
especially like for those who might work out of home, or like they're
Yeah,
they have 2 cars or 3 cars and they don't use all of them all the
Yeah.
time, right? So there's really those kind of type of customers that we have who
Mhm.
like the platform, who actually come out, sign up, and stay on the keep their car on the platform once they see their earnings come in.
Okay. So let's flip back to the users, people who actually rent the cars.
Yeah.
You said people are most likely, but generally people use it for like the 2-hour trips,
Yeah.
the short-term trips. I know there are more usage now. A lot of people are not owning their own vehicles.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not buying vehicles as they used to.
Right.
The sharing economy becomes more and more. Do you see this? Do you see that trend now? Millennials who are not buying vehicles use
Yeah.
these vehicles more.
Mm-hmm.
Like how's the user like the study been on the people using the app, people who want to use the app?
Yeah.
Have you got any data to share?
Well, yeah. So we see that trend, and that's kind of like helping us on the user end, right? Because people, instead of having to buy a car and have it parked, I think the average car is parked like 95% of the time or so. So
Yeah.
instead of having that and paying like an average $800 a month to own that car, they can use one, through platforms like ours, or even other platforms that are maybe closer to them. And so at that point, I think like eventually, like down the road, we'll get to that point where, especially in like more dense cities and busier cities, we'll see more and more people adopt to that model, as we're already seeing today as well. Like even with ride sharing, a lot of people just like take a ride with someone else to get from one point to another. So we're seeing that trend definitely happen, and I think eventually we'll get to that point where like more people will use a car through any of the platforms, right, than to own one.
So when did you start working on this problem? Like how did it stand out to you?
Yeah, so it goes back to end of or early 2016 actually. So,
Okay.
Well, I had the idea for like maybe about a year, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I was living at my parents in Richmond Hill, and there was a lot of cars that were basically just kind of parked throughout the day. Every time would. So I didn't own a car at that time, so I would walk. I would just take the bus. I would take a bike, and I would just kind of drive or bike down watching all these cars like parked. And I was like, there has to be something in the middle that could allow me to use this car to just go to my meeting and come back, or go to the gym and come back.
So when was this around?
Or like time wise,
Yeah.
this is like May 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Were you a
yeah.
university student?
I was actually working on another startup at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was basically doing that, and then didn't own a car, but everywhere I had to go, I would like be forced to kind of either walk, and especially like in
Yeah.
a rural area, like nothing's like kind of close by, so you gotta like walk at least 15,
Sorry,
20
where were
minutes to
you
get
from?
somewhere. Richmond Hill.
Richmond Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Richmond Hill being a rural area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Richmond Hill is much of a rural area, but I understand it completely. Right?
Yeah.
Richmond Hill area, like a lot of people own these vehicles that sit around most of the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And being especially someone who doesn't have access to a vehicle and seeing these vehicles sitting there,
Mhm.
you start putting together, saying that why can't I get access to these vehicles if I need to?
Exactly, yeah. So it was just like out of personal need, and so and the problem, especially in that area, was like just the distances, right? The distances are so long, right? So there's a lot going on in Richmond Hill and everything, but like to get there was at least like 20 minutes. Like my gym was like 30-minute walk, and the 30-minute walk back is like 60 minutes, right? So at that point, I just like preferred to walk to get a workout done. So, but yeah, like essentially, like that's what I saw, like the personal need that I had for it, and wasn't really sure how to start. And I knew like the insurance is going to be kind of the challenge to get, and so wasn't really sure about it until I shared the idea with one of my friends, and at that time he wanted to start something as well. and so that's kind of how we got together and we started ShiftRide.
Okay. So this is your co-founder?
What's that?
Is your friend your co-founder?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect. And he's a technical side to it, or?
Well, yeah, kind of tech slash business. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so are you the coder? Or is he the coder?
So
or you guys both coding?
So he was coding for a bit. So he's actually not part of the company anymore. But when he was part of the company, he would kind of do half the coding, half the business side. I would do more of the design slash marketing side of things. I coded the app as well, so I do a bit of everything, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
and
And how do you learn these skills? Like, how do you pick it up?
yeah, so like pretty much throughout like high school, at the end of high school, I guess I picked up iPhone development online. Pretty much like I was using kind of drag and drop apps where you don't need to code at first, you know. So I used that, so I kind of got comfortable with like making games for iPhone. That was like around the time when like iPhone was just, or the App Store just got basically released, like and got launched on iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was like a year after iPhone got released, like 2009 or 2010. So at that time, like there was a lot of demand for like games and apps, and when you put your game on the App Store, you had a pretty likelihood of getting a couple downloads. Now it's like become a lot more competitive, of course. But at that time, I thought it was a perfect thing to kind of test. I was interested in kind of.
Did you put anything up?
Yeah, I launched like couple games, about like 4 or 5 games at that time.
Cool.
And really just shared it in high school with my friends.
What kind of games?
Like puzzle games and things like that, right? Where like challenging games where you have to like go through multiple levels and stuff. And it was all done through like the drag and drop coding kind of app. So I didn't write any lines of code. It was just mostly like just basic logic that you needed. So it was a good kind of foot in the door towards like iPhone app development. I wasn't sure if like this is something I liked at the time, but once I started doing it and I started seeing people like download the app and use it, and it became really interesting that like something so easy like you can just push it out to like so many people throughout.
Sorry,
who
what
have
kind of
iPhones.
games you said, like puzzle apps?
Yeah,
Puzzle games, that kind of things?
yeah, exactly. Like at that time, I think like a lot of those games were like physics slash puzzle, where you have to use like
The movement
physics,
and stuff.
to move stuff around. And one of the games I made, like it was called Owl Hunter. So you had to get kind of this owl into a cage, and then you'd have to use kind of physics rules and everything to get that owl kind of gliding towards the right path and everything. So it was at that point I put it up for like 99 cents. And then I made a free version, so that free version really helped. Like got about like 10,000 to 15,000 maybe downloads.
Nice.
So that brought in a lot of people towards the paid app. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you did it in high school?
Yeah. This was at the end of high school. So that's kind of like how I kind of became interested in this stuff. And I was also on the yearbook team and everything, doing design, like Photoshop, things like that. And that's how I got my experience with design. And marketing were just really in the middle. When I was like launching my apps and things like that, I'd had to just get out and tell people about it. And so over time, that's kind of really how I got the experience.
Yeah, I mean, before you came in, we were just talking about how like YouTube now, you can find almost everything there. You can learn any kind of skill.
Exactly.
And now, and especially nowadays, become more and more information out there. I remember like 2013 when I was trying to get these kind of sources. Back then, it was not as much resourcing. No, a lot of the stuff is very still technical. Yeah, there's no video walkthroughs and how to make these different things, right?
Yeah.
You just picked it up yourself, going through forums, that kind of things, or
pretty much, yeah. Like kind of Googling my way through like making an app, and like lots of YouTube videos as well. I was also like in computer science at like I was taking computer science classes as well in high school, so that helped a little bit. Every time I was stuck on something, I'd also get advice from my computer science teacher as well, so that kind of helped. And then that's pretty much like where.
And you did computer science in university as well?
Yeah, exactly.
At Waterloo?
Yeah, at Waterloo.
Waterloo. Nice. And that's a complete specialty, or?
Like my specialty, or well, a little bit. Like I would say like I'm more on the kind of design side, because I started design like a lot earlier. Like when I was 12, I was already like doing kind of animations on Flash and stuff like that. And so, I would say I'm more of a designer than coder, but I can code if I have to, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you had this whole background in tech and especially in the design side.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for that? Why'd you go down that path?
Yeah. So like it goes back to kind of my experience in high school as well when I was on like the yearbook team and designing posters and stuff for different events. One day I was actually designing T-shirts for one event that came up, and my teacher wanted kind of a nice design for these T-shirts. So I started making it for about maybe a couple weeks. Eventually made it, sent it in, and it was like every other design for me at the time. So I wasn't really sure like what it's gonna come out like and everything. And eventually, one day we actually came back from like a trip, in school. It was maybe around like 4 p.m. after school. So I accidentally walked into the library, and then my left was like a group of like 100 people wearing that T-shirt, right, that I designed.
Okay.
So it was just like that experience was like just incredible, like being able to see my design kind of come to action and seeing people use it, even though it was like, just a couple people, maybe 100 people wearing my T-shirt, but still
That's
the fact that I
amazing,
helped design that, it felt good, right? So like I at that
Sorry,
time,
was
like,
this for an event or?
yeah, it was for an event in school. So like once I saw that, I was like, it's like building things and just seeing people use it, like kind of delivered a lot of value and like gave me happiness, right? So that's why I was like, this is something that I want to explore more and just create stuff and build stuff and launch them. So after that, I did a couple projects while I was in university. Like even from like my friend and I started like a wool tie company, right? So we'd make like wool ties, and we launched on Kickstarter, sold about 200 ties. But
Nice.
Anything from that to like more apps that I made on the App Store and stuff. Yeah.
So you've always been a hustler.
Oh,
Just making
yeah.
things on the side, yeah?
Yeah. Just like I love like seeing my creation come to life and seeing people use it, and or if not, like just learning from it and moving on, right?
Yeah. Cool. So your motivation more for entrepreneurship comes from the act of creating new things and putting them out to market and seeing other people adopt it.
Yeah.
That's where your satisfaction comes from?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. How's the business side? How do you fund all this? How do you keep things going?
Right. Like they kind of the idea generation, or like in general.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like it's great to have passion projects. Right?
Yeah,
Doing
yeah,
things
yeah.
on the side as fun, but something like ShiftRide.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is your full-time activity right now.
Yeah.
When did it become a full-time?
Well, like right when we started, like I kind of built it full time. At that time, me and my co-founder had this like mentality that we should, if we're working on a startup and we're doing it together, we should go full time, because I actually met him like earlier when I actually got into school, like Kitchener-Waterloo, and this is back in like 2013. So for about 3 years, we worked on small projects here and there, and we believed like it didn't work out because like we weren't spending all the time or full time like kind of on that, and it was partially true, right? More like because of the fact that like if there was school on the side, and we have to focus on that, and so at the same time we had this project, so it didn't give us the full opportunity. So that's why like when we started ShiftRide, we decided go full time or just don't do it at all. So we went full time with it, but right now I don't have that mentality. So if there was someone who came to me and said I had an idea, I would tell them, regardless of what your situation is, whether you're working full time or part time or you're a student full time, I would say you can still make it work until you get to that point where you can turn it full time. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, like there's a very big divide on this.
Yeah.
There's two schools of thought. People who are like, keep your idea as a part-time project or a side hustle, and get it up and running first on the side while maintaining a full-time gig or full-time employment.
Yeah.
Because you want to have that steady income and plan B. And anything you can do full-time, you can and build up slowly over a part-time basis.
Yeah.
Get it up and running, get it revenue positive, and then slowly transition to a full-time.
Right.
And then there's other people on the other side who thought like no way, that's gonna take too long. You need to move fast. You know what works and what doesn't, and you need to learn as fast as possible. It's better to just leave what you're doing and full-time focus on this. Do or die, no plan B.
Right.
Very aggressive, high risk take kind of endeavor. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, neither side has really won out yet.
Right.
It really depends on the entrepreneur and the idea itself and what they're working on.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, you went full time into this.
Yeah.
Was that because of your age you were able to do that? Because you don't have much commitments?
Yeah.
Or something that you would always do?
Right. Well, again, like when I started like making startups and projects and things like that, I was in school, right? So like
Yeah.
full time. So it started part time for me, and it has its like disadvantages, right? So you don't get to
Yeah.
have your mind on it full time and everything, or all the time, right? So that's the idea is like as an entrepreneur, there's no kind of turn off button. So once
Yeah.
you have an idea in your head and you really want to build it, if you're not working on it, you're probably thinking about it. So that's the challenging part. Some people can do it, like some people can balance those two things, but for most people, it's really difficult. So it depends, especially on the situation, right? So like um, if let's say you can get your idea up and running with like a small MVP that you put together in like 2 weekends, and you can get to profitability, let's say in like a couple months, and your idea is like shaped like that, then you can probably do it part time. But if it's something, let's say you're working on a health tech product, and it takes a couple years to get regulations and everything sorted, then you'd probably better off to raise investment, let's say, and work on it full time or something like that, right? So depends on the project and depends on the person and their
Yeah.
situation. For me, when I was starting ShiftRide, I was, because I was working on my previous startup full time as well. I had that mentality that I'm, I love dedicating like all my time to a startup just because of the fact that it's always like on your mind, right? So you might as
Mm-hmm.
well just be working on it all the time if you can, right? So at that time I had the option, so I took it. It was faster, but at the same time for us, the insurance, kind of getting the insurance policy built, still took a long time. So for the first year of ShiftRide, even though we were full time, we couldn't do that much, right? So we were like doing market research and things like that, and seeing if people will use the product. But um, we could have potentially been working on it part time and still gotten the same result after we got kind of our insurance policy and everything, then go full time. So I don't think I think if I go back, it wouldn't really make too big of a difference in that first year or so, right? But if it was a project where I could build an MVP, and I wasn't restrained by like an insurance policy to come in and things like that, then I would probably like launch it regardless of whether I'm full time or part time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Like, and I mean, that's great, right? Being able to put so much time and effort into a project, I think it deserves that.
Yeah.
And you have a good idea, like it deserves like your full attention span.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I definitely fall in that camp where it's like, yeah, I mean, like if you do something, go in head 1st completely and do that. Otherwise, you're not going to learn fast enough to like respond to refine your idea to where it's supposed to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How about yourself? Like when you started ShiftRide, like what has been the pitfalls? What has been the pivots you've had to do? I mean, I'm sure it has to change over the past 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the biggest one, or not the pitfall, but the challenge that we had was like that insurance policy that we needed to have. Like
Yeah.
essentially, like we, in order for our product to work, we need to take on that risk and have an insurance provided for every trip, which is what we have right now, right? So in order to get that up and running, we had to work with an insurance company on a completely new policy because it didn't exist at that time. So that was kind of like our first kind of big challenge that we had, and the kind of the pivot that we had to make because of that was the fact that we went to a car dealership and had their car sign up, because in our mind we were just going to go straight to individuals, and we had like a wait list of I think at the time when we were launching the pilot, about maybe 100 people who said they'd be interested in sharing their car on the platform. So we had that like wait list, and then we had on the other side wait lists of maybe 400, 500 people who wanted to use those cars or use the platform once it's launched. So we just wanted to kind of launch and get the car signed up, get the users to use the platform. We thought it's going to be simple, but it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
It's never like kind of a straight line. So
If you
because
build
of
it, they'll
that,
come kind of idea.
yeah, exactly. So because of that, we'd have to kind of go around and first launch with our own car, like just one, and so or do kind of a pilot with it or an MVP. And once we did that, then we had to go to the dealership. So that was a slight pivot in our business model, and it still kind of exists today, where it's been built into the product that if you have multiple cars on ShiftRide, you can probably make a decent amount of money because of the kind of the infrastructure we put in place throughout that time for these fleet owners. So yeah, that's kind of, I would say, the biggest kind of, I guess, changes since we started ShiftRide.
That's awesome. So Let's talk a little bit more about like future endeavors, like where you're going to pivot to.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You talked a little bit about like the learnings you've had to come through.
Yeah.
What do you predict that you have to become in order to meet the challenges of tomorrow? So you
Yeah.
expand into the GTA and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Yeah, for us, like expansion is next, and the way we can do it, like the fastest is kind of what we're looking for, right? So, I don't have a like kind of crystal clear answer to that, but what couple things that we're testing is, for example, like month-long kind of bookings, like subscriptions to a car. So, for those people, especially that you touched on, they don't need a car, but they want to use one. We were thinking about launching subscription models where people can subscribe to a car, whether it's provided by your local dealership or an individual who owns, again, multiple cars. You can use the car on a monthly basis and then drop it off when you don't need it, or switch into another car. So maybe in the winter you can drive an SUV, in the summer you can book out a convertible. And that idea has been around for some time. It's still developing. We have even like car companies testing that as well. Like we had I think Porsche testing it. We had I believe like GM had its own pilot with that as well. So and they're all testing that model as well. So that's one thing that could get us to like a bigger kind of expansion. And of course, like launching to the GTA is definitely next for us. So giving more people access to a car, because our company is kind of really location focused right now. So like we have the operation, but we can only really service in Waterloo right now because the cars that we have signed up are there. But once we have the more cars signed up in the GTA, then we can launch here. And so we'd have that kind of restriction not
So
be
how
there
are you
anymore,
finding
yeah.
renters right now? Like right now you've been hustling on your own, talking to the dealerships, talking to
Yeah.
people directly. How do you plan on expanding that? Like how do you plan on reaching people who want?
Yeah, so actually, like a lot of our car owners are coming through like word of mouth, or even like hearing from other people, maybe even the users, like their friends own a car and they tell their friends about it, or like, or they see a ShiftRide car on the streets and with like a ShiftRide sticker, so they're interested, so they search it up and they come to the platform. But we also have like, kind of some Facebook ads and things like that here and there to get people into the kind of the funnel and see if this is really for them. So that's kind of the main channels we're using right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think one of Uber's best moves was the referral system they had.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Drivers refer to each other.
Right.
Drivers refer other drivers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think at its peak, Uber was giving like $5,000, something per referral, like something crazy.
Yeah.
Some crazy
Yeah.
number. Right. I remember one of the highest paid guys, was, one of the earliest Uber drivers that signed up for the app very early on, and he, after signing up with Uber, got into an accident.
Oh, okay.
And he actually, I think it was half paralyzed, something like that, and it was pretty severe. Anyways, while he was in recovery, he was in the hospital, he started referring people on the app.
Yeah.
First to friends and family, then on Reddit and online, and he made a lot of money. Like, something ridiculous, like $200,000 or $2 million.
Oh, wow.
Just referrals.
Right.
Because he was early on and people were joining up through his app, through his platform, even online.
Yeah.
And he made that money, and
Right.
he was like, it's one of the highlights of user's growth strategy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Of using people who are motivated to go out and find other people.
Yeah.
And
Even after a
encourage
big
each other.
accident, right?
What's that?
Even after a big accident.
Yeah, I mean, he was still able to monetize himself.
Yeah.
Even like DoorDash recently, when he was there expanding in Toronto, we were actually talking to them, and we were talking to the operations team.
Yeah.
They were offering like $2,500 per driver referred.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
I mean, DoorDash is now at $16 billion. They can throw money at this problem, right? And just get the market to respond. Okay, we'll throw X amount of people. We want 800 drivers in this area. That's $2 million campaign. We'll pay X amount per person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing these like gig economy kind of companies coming in, and everybody be like coming in, and basically what they do is they get a scalable app, get a whole infusion of capital, use that capital to grow, expand very quickly, using like these kind of strategies.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of having like a middle management or like ads or anything like that, just give direct compensation.
Yeah.
Go out and find me someone who does this and meets these requirements, signs up and does like 200 rides.
Right.
Boom, you get the referral.
For sure.
Kind of outsourcing that entire model. Would you guys go down that path? I mean, capital is a big requirement of it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's like one of our competing companies, like in based in Get Around, like they did even like guaranteed incomes and things like that, where they, I don't know if they still have the program, but they, when a car signed up and it was on the platform for a certain amount of time, they would just give them, you know, guaranteed $6,000 a year to have their car on the platform. So I think definitely like we kind of experimented that, like, you know, without much capital, right? So when we had, for example, the dealership signed up, we guaranteed some sort of income for them to keep them on the platform. So I think, yeah, definitely it's a great way to grow. We also did that on the user side and we provide users like, you know, $10 off their first trip to come test the platform and use it and see if they like it. And that's worked really well.
Yeah.
So but yeah, if we provide something where on both sides, people can actively refer, you know, whether users referring car owners or car owners referring users. I think it would, yeah, definitely, like that would help us grow, and that's definitely one thing we can do after we raise some money. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And the second thing is, of course, is like affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
It's huge for these kind of models. You know, someone with a podcast who has some kind of following, an influencer, etc. Give them the link, the ability to make any kind of their own affiliate link, and just pop it into their feed or their content. Whoever clicks in and signs up, the person gets paid.
Right.
There's so much like interesting like models out there now to use technology to get other people to do work for you.
Yeah.
You know?
To
reach out for you, marketing for you, advertising for you.
Seeing everything shift towards that. Yeah.
But all of this comes down to capital.
Yeah.
And one of the worries about this is that if the access to capital is not equal,
yeah,
so for whatever reason, you have a great product with great service, but like this is mixing, that's mixing, or you don't have the network or understanding of how to pitch it to capital, right? People who have access to capital can put in inferior products and launch it and expand it really rapidly because they have the money and the technology exists.
Yeah.
I put in capital, this results come in.
Right.
People who have money are out competing people who don't, or access to capital.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Well, I think like not having capital also gives you the advantage of like having to move quicker, right? To compete with those people who have capital, right? So I don't think like it's if let's say you want to start something in a space where there's lots of companies that have lots of capital, then you shouldn't be disappointed just because they have capital, you know. So I think like if you find a version of the product to create that differentiates you and really gets people interested in your product, initially it's better for you to actually like, you know, go out and really meet those early adopters who actually don't care about referral programs or extra capital. They just want to really you know, provide either a service or whatever you're looking for from that customer to you, to really test out the platform and help you get there, right? So when you're talking about like those early adopters, then the capital matters less. So it becomes a bit harder to find those early adopters. But once you do, you really put yourself in a position where you can test out your product without having much capital and getting it to a point where then, because of the growth and because of people using it and those early adopters coming and leaving good testimonies, let's say, or good reviews and stuff, then you can use that to go out and get capital. So that's kind of been our strategy as well. Like the people who are sharing their car, like I told you, some people signed up luxury like cars that are like 60, 70K in value, like on ShiftRide, and I was surprised myself. I was like, you know, why would these people do that? Like we had like two BMW, like 4 Series, like one owner who was sharing 2 BMWs, and I was like, that's just crazy. And really, like when you know, I talked to them and everything, they're really that kind of early adopter of this platform. Same customers actually kind of using our platform right now as well. When their car's out, they would use our platform. So once you have someone like that where they fall in love with your product and they really want to support you as that early adopter, then the capital matters less, right? So they're there for that true value. And so if you're able to get there without capital, then I think that's probably like the best way to go about it.
Spoke like a true product person, right? Like
if
you can build the best product, like the idea is that
exactly
you'll out-compete everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like it's very important to build things that are very consumer-centric, right?
Yeah.
You build it for the user in the end user, so that it's built to actually solve problems for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Because on the reverse side of that, we see a lot of people who might have ideas, and if they have like easier access to capital, let's say, or they're in a situation where they can get capital, a lot of people put capital into that idea and it fails, right? So it's not guaranteed always that if you have if you have money that you can put into the product, it would, people would come, right? So, yeah, so I would say it's better to not have to require or kind of have money as your first requirement to starting a company, right? So
Definitely. Definitely. How's that journey been for you? I know you guys are raising capital right now.
yeah,
You
yeah,
guys
yeah.
are in a pair of raising. Are you open with how much you're raising? And
Yeah, so we're raising right now $1 million seed round.
Yeah.
So that's for like until now, kind of what we did is just kind of a family friends round of like 50K, as well as like grant competitions and things like
Yeah.
that here and there of about like 60K. So we have about 100K kind of in funding in total. So and right now we're raising that million to really expand kind of throughout GTA,
Yep.
other cities, especially other student cities who
So
who
that,
have the
so that
same
$1 million
problem.
raise is meant for just pure expansion
Pretty much
into
yeah.
the GTA mostly.
Yeah,
Mostly GTA
yeah,
region.
absolutely, and also launching Android app as well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're mostly on iOS right now?
All on iOS right
All
now.
on iOS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are you on the web as well?
No web right now. So because like our platform is like very kind of on demand and everything, so
Mhm.
we created the whole experience on iPhone. Yeah.
Was there a reason why you didn't do like a web responsive web application?
Well, like the biggest, or not the biggest, but like one of the reasons is like a lot of companies, like a lot of startups, like launch on iPhone. And I don't know if there's like stats around. I think there are some stats around it that a lot of the kind of the iPhone users are those early adopters, or a lot of those early adopters have iPhones or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
why we built it that way. And also the fact that like I knew iPhone development as well, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's mainly why we had some features also into the in the iPhone app that like were pretty hard to kind of reproduce the same
Replicate,
in the
yeah.
web. Yeah, replicate them in the web apps, like especially like a video walk around in the car. So before every trip, you walk around the car, take videos and things like that were
Yeah,
kind
okay.
of more complex. Yeah.
Definitely, okay. So a little bit of development on the Android side, the web side will be
Mhm.
required, and then you want to push it for expansion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How's that feedback been like?
Yeah, it's good. We just basically need to kind of show the growth and everything. So right now, as we're getting like ready to raise, like we're basically expanding our fleet in Waterloo, signing
Yeah.
up more cars there, and really getting that cycle like going, and potentially even other cities like nearby, like Guelph, maybe
Yeah.
London. So we're working
London,
on
yeah.
those. Yeah. So that helps us kind of show investors that there's a demand there.
Yeah.
And so that's I guess like that's mostly kind of what we're waiting for, is that growth. Yeah.
Definitely. So without any, any capital infusion coming in right now, how's your growth trajectory rate looking? You
Yeah.
Still,
So we like on average we're looking at around like maybe 20% kind of monthly growth right now.
all word of mouth mostly.
What's that?
Mostly word of mouth.
Yeah, mostly word of mouth. Some again like promotions and stuff for the user side. So like the users come in and test out the platform,
Yeah.
and get $10 off the first ride, and then eventually come out and book and drive the car more and more. That's paid really well, because like most of the customers come back and book multiple times. And actually right now we have a retention rate of 50% monthly. So it's like really great, because like half our customers come back every month and use the platform. So yeah.
So let's talk about competitors.
Yeah.
Right. So a competitor for you will be like Turo,
Yeah.
which is an American company that does pretty much
Yeah.
a similar concept.
Yeah.
They launched into Canada like I think last year.
Right.
They didn't have much traction. They
Mhm.
came, I think, mostly into Toronto and like Montreal region, Ottawa, and they didn't get much traction there.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk a little bit about why that was, or what's going on with Turo?
Yeah. So I would say like for their platform, like the type of cars that they need, or the types of trips that's taken on the platform is it might be a bit of a harder sell. So to get people to give up their car for, I believe they're, from what I heard, like average trips are maybe 3-4 days long. So for someone to not have their car out, available for 3-4 days, it sometimes it's not worth it, right? So like especially if they work somewhere
Their model
far.
goes by day.
Yeah, the models by day, whereas like our models by the hour or day. So, and our average trips are about like 2.5 to 3 hours long, right? So we see those types of trips not be as kind of as much of a friction point to those car owners. So my guess would be that I know they're also growing as well now, a little bit kind of more on that side. I've seen some people like sharing multiple cars as well on their platforms. I think um, definitely they're they're knowing they're learning how to kind of get to the right audience of car owners as well. So, but that's my guess as to why it's a bit of a harder. And also especially with Airbnb when they first came out, not everyone jumped on board and said, I want to rent out my place to strangers, right? So it's
a learning curve.
Yeah, exactly, learning curve. It takes some time, and so especially when you launch in a new market, like you need to have again those early adopters, and then eventually you get your early majority people come in, and then those late majority and laggards who are like at the end, right? So it takes some time for
Like
any platform.
I'm sure as you're out pitching this out your app and you plan to move, this question comes up a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
Your competitors are in the space already.
Yeah.
All right, they're so much bigger or funded. Like, what's your feedback from that?
Yeah.
Explain this, that your
Yeah.
model's different.
Yeah, exactly. So we like the biggest one is that flexibility, right? So the fact that we made it so that you can use the platform for however long you want it, right? So that gives both the car owners and the users flexibility to use the platform how they want it, right? So if you want to if you want to run errands around town and your neighbor has a car, you don't need the car for the whole day. You can take it out for however long you need it, for a couple hours, 4 or 5 hours, and go run your errands and come back.
Point?
Yeah,
like,
so
what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
yeah,
I've experienced as well when you're out pitching, right?
yeah.
A lot of I guess not naysayers, but people who are just like, it doesn't click to them.
Yeah.
They see it like, okay, there's a problem set, but only for a certain community, or they
Right.
downplay it, or they don't understand the problem that's much,
Yeah.
or they see too many risks, like a big competitor in the space. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, how has that been for you as a founder to like?
Yeah. Well, I think I usually have the same answer, and that's like the market, right? The market kind of speaks for itself, right? So I don't think that the kind of the car sharing space or the car rental space, especially in the peer-to-peer aspect of it, has been saturated yet, or even close to that, right?
Yeah.
So we still
Vast majority of people are not really.
Yeah, like if we talked about like the car sharing space, the traditional car sharing space where companies would buy cars and put them in specific parking spots and everything, like then I'd agree that at that point with the capital and with how much capital is even required to start something like that, because of you needing to buy those cars and everything, then it's more challenging to start a company like that than let's say marketplace where with very little funding you can get some growth. So that's why the answer is like I believe the market still needs more and more access to cars. So locations like a big one, right? So a lot of we have some competitors in Waterloo, but the ones who take us is because or the customers who take us because the car is available in their building, right? So ShiftRide is available in their building as opposed to let's say another competitor that they need to walk 10 minutes to get to, right? So I think we're still in that, especially as we see the market on the user side become less and less interested in buying cars, then the demand's going to grow, right? So we need more companies in the space to come in and fulfill the need. And so I think like we'll definitely be one of them.
Do you guys see yourself like as a double-sided market space, where you're pretty much one side of the market is the people who want to rent cars, and the other side people who want to provide cars to rent?
Exactly.
Is that how you see it? As you're pretty much a platform that connects it to?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is the experience different for either side? Like for your app, let's say the rundown. Because iOS, I don't think I can bring it up here.
Right.
But if you're a renter, do you have a different application, or are you using the same application?
Yeah. So right now the application is actually just for the renter or the user side. The car owner have like a web portal that they log into, and from there they can see the bookings that they've had, how much they earned on that specific booking.
You can bring up your website.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's your website. You can just go to the website.
Yeah, pretty much. Like so, as a car owner, we just give you a specific URL that you go to, you log in, and you see kind of how much money you've made on those platforms. And this is kind of like a calculator that we put up. So as a car owner, you can based on how much your car is worth or where everything it could fit on the platform, you can get kind of a monthly or yearly estimate on how
So
much.
depending on how many
you
hours you put it per month?
Yeah, so this is based on hours and kilometers. So if you see like 60 hours and 600 kilometers on average, make you about $540 a month
That's not bad.
for a car that's mid-range. So we're talking about cars that are like over 10K, between 10 to 30K.
Say someone has like a $500 car, like
Yeah,
can they put this up?
well, if the car is like safe to drive and everything, and it's past
How do
safety
you
and things.
verify?
So sometimes we ask for a safety of a car if it's too old. So either it's a safety or based on again the rating of the car. So we sign it up, and if a customer reports
It's too wrong.
that the car is not good enough, then over time we have that rating. If it falls below a certain rating, then we don't let the car
Okay.
stay on the platform.
Perfect.
And then if you have a luxury car and you're sharing it, it's also decent. And we've had like the BMW cars we were talking about, like at some point I think they were making like $1,000 a month. Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So right now, what are you looking more for? Are you looking for more users or more people listing?
As we expand to new cities, definitely new people listing their cars. Because like any other marketplace, you first need to get the supply side there, so that when your demand side comes, they're not just seeing one car. They're looking
This
at
is interface
multiple
right
cars.
here. This is what you designed, I'm assuming.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is what the booking page will look like. Before you book, you can get more information about the car, the average ratings, features it has, things like that.
Awesome. And you said there's a video. You can see a video of the walkthrough, or
So yeah, once you book, after this, you do a walk around the car and you take a video of the car, just to note its condition or anything that's wrong with it. So
you have a quick video here.
yeah, this is pretty much like what we put together, and you can see.
I don't think the audio is connected here, but let's check it out. So it's pretty much like a use case of someone just.
Pretty much, yeah. Just like the how quick you can get. And actually, we flew a drone here to make this video over the Waterloo campus. Pretty
I'm
cool.
just gonna quickly go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much to show the accessibility and how fast it can be to book a car.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So let's wrap up.
Yeah.
What can we see more from the future? You're obviously trying to raise more capital.
Yeah.
You're trying to expand into new markets, new areas.
Yeah.
Are you hiring right now? Are you expanding your team?
Yeah, well, at this time we're not hiring, but just kind of raising, and then eventually we're gonna hire in 2020, so like early 2020 for sure.
And as we mentioned before, you're moving from Waterloo into Toronto.
Yeah, so that's next up on our list for sure to get more cars signed up here. We already have a wait list of about, I believe, like 15 cars that are signed up in Toronto, but obviously we want to get that to like maybe 50 or so before we open up the market here.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nima, thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing all this. This is
Thank
great.
you for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers.